Hello and welcome to Geography Rocks. In this video we're going to learn how to read graphs. This is a key skill which examiners will be testing in your GCSE. It is important that before you start any questions looking at graphs that you just spend a moment to understand what is in front of you. Check the axes. What are they representing? What measurements are being used? Is it in millions or is it in kilometres? Those axes are really important. Can you identify any trends from the graph? Perhaps if it's a line graph, you could spot an increase or a decrease. You should try to include the word steadily, fluctuates, or rapidly in your response. So the moment you see a graph, start to picture whether there's been an overall increase or decrease. Often, a graph will have a split, perhaps where something has increased rapidly for a period of time and then a steady decrease has occurred later. Is the graph complete? Often the examiner will ask you to complete the graph, so just check. If it's a rainfall graph, are all the bars drawn on, or are there some spaces left in the middle that you should complete in your answer? Check the line graph. Has the line been drawn on? If not, it's likely that the examiner is going to ask you to do that. This is a question that many students miss, so do double check that graph. Read the question carefully. What is the command word? Does it say describe? If so, the examiner is only looking for you to use data and describe that trend using increase, decrease, steadily, rapidly and fluctuates. Do not explain the graph if you've only been asked to describe it. There'll be time for that later. Always include data when describing a graph. The examiner is just checking as to whether you can read a graph or not. Let's take a look at a graph. So this is a graph to show the population of Brazil over time. Check the axes. The population of Brazil in millions. It's important that we specify that in our answer. And along the bottom here we've got the year. Take a moment just to familiarise yourself with the graph. As you can see, prior to 1800, the population was very small and not increasing that significantly. But then watch. From 1800 to 2000, there has been a significant, rapid increase in population. Let's see the question that the examiner would pose. Describe the rate of population change in Brazil from 1800 to 2000. It's important we take note of that date. The examiner is not asking us to consider the population from the start of the graph, but just from 1800 to 2000. So let's see what a response should look like. Here's our graph now. Notice the red lines. I've tried to draw on to the axis so I can see clearly the population changes. As you can see, in 1800 the population of Brazil was less than 10 million. This increased steadily until 1900. By 1940, you can see that the population has reached 45 million, and then the population increased rapidly, reaching 180 million by the year 2000. Take a look at my response carefully. I've included data, I've included the phrase increased steadily and increased rapidly. Let's take a look at this version of a graph. This graph shows us Brazil and the area of deforestation per year. Once again, let's take a moment to look at the axes. On the left-hand side, it says the area of deforestation in kilometres squared per year. Remember that measurement, kilometres squared per year. I must include that in my response. Along the bottom, I've got the years, spanning from 1988 to 2014. This graph is trickier in that there's a fluctuation, increases and decreases over those years. I have to be careful not to confuse the examiner. I mustn't write it goes up and down and up again. I must consider the overall trend, and the overall trend is that there has been a decrease in deforestation in kilometres per year. Let's take a look at the graph a little bit more carefully. This is the question the examiner would pose. Describe the rate of deforestation in Brazil from 1995 to 2010. As you can see from the graph, the examiner is not asking me to consider the whole span of years, but has been selective 1995 until 2010. It is totally acceptable for you to draw, like I have, on your exam graph. So I've drawn a line from 1995 up to that top peak, and I can see that the level was about 29,000 kilometres squared per year. By 2010, the number had reached approximately 7,000 kilometres squared per year. This is an overall decrease in deforestation. Let's take a look at a good response. Between 1995 and 2010, deforestation rates in Brazil have fluctuated but seen an overall decline. In 1995, 29,000 kilometres squared per year were destroyed. This had fallen to just 7,000 kilometres squared per year by 2010. This is a good response in that I have included the dates as specified by the examiner. I have mentioned the word fluctuates, but identified an overall decline, and most importantly, I've clearly identified data in my response. Good luck with your graph drawing. You've been listening to Geography Rocks.